Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Now, if you've been joining me over on Instagram this month, you know I'm doing a little Christmas in July and I'm bringing it here to YouTube as well. I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful Christmas card using some of my favorite colors for Christmas. And I'm going to show you how to use the Betterpress Registration Plates. Now, the new Spellbinders Christmas release has hit the shop. It's available today. I'm showing you some of the products that I will be creating with this month, including this Color Mix Merry Registration Betterpress set. I will also be using the Mistletoe Greetings Betterpress set. Keep in mind that Betterpress can be used for the Betterpress letterpress technique, or you can use them for foiling as well. Now, I will also be using this 3D Argyle Plaid embossing folder later on this month, so be sure you stay tuned. But I really wanted to show you how to use the Betterpress registration plates. Now, the registration plate Betterpress sets include a registration guide and several plates that you can press at different times in different colors to create a multicolored image. And this is a look at the registration guide. It's actually upside down here, but it shows you where to place each of the plates on your Betterpress platform in order to line them up perfectly. And you can see I have several plates here along with some additional sentiments and dies. So I'm going to start by setting up my Betterpress platform, and you can see this magnetic base that's in the chase of the Betterpress system actually kind of has some wiggle room. That's so you can remove it. But when I'm using a registration plate set, I don't like it to move around because I want to be able to press multiple times in the same place if I need to. And so what I'm going to do is push this into the lower right-hand corner, and I'm going to hold this magnetic plate in place on the chase with some Best Ever craft tape. Now I'm also going to take the registration guide. I'm going to make sure that I can read this Betterpress logo here, and it looks like it's backwards, but that's because when you're stamping or you're pressing, it's going to look backwards in order for you to line it up correctly on your card. So I'm going to take this guide, I'm going to center it in my A2 outline there on the chase, and I am going to tape that in place as well. I just find I like to tape it in place so that nothing's moving around. Then I am going to start by adding my plates, and I'm lining them up inside the outlines that are provided on that guide. So once I have them in place, I can go ahead and take my Betterpress porcelain cardstock. I've cut this to an A2 size panel, and I'm holding it in place on the platen of my Betterpress system. And the platen is just this clear plate that goes over the top. Once again, I'm using the Best Ever craft tape to hold that in place. And I'm going to show you a couple of mistakes I made along the way. Now, I am using some dye inks from Concord and Ninth because they are some of my favorite colors. And you can see I'm using a full-size ink pad here, and I had a couple of issues with that. Number one, I got a ton of ink on my chase here, and that's going to transfer to my paper here in just a moment. But also, these large stamp pads, a couple of them were a little on the drier side, and it was almost like they were suctioning to the Betterpress plate and kind of pulling it off of the chase there. And that doesn't work because I want to keep it lined up within those outlines. You can see on this one, I actually picked up the entire R. I'm going to show you how I fix that here in just a moment, but I'm going to keep working just so you can see the mistakes that I made. So I have a pair of tweezers on hand, and I went ahead and placed that back inside the outline on the registration guide here that's on the chase of my Betterpress system. And again, I'm inking up using some ballet slipper ink from Concord and Ninth. Now I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, and what this is going to do is put pressure on those plates and transfer the ink onto my Betterpress cardstock. Now, because I had so much over inking, and because the acetate guide on my chase actually adds a little bit of pressure to the Betterpress system, I did get some ink transfer onto my background. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to clean this up, and I'm going to start again. Now, there's a couple things you could do in this situation. You could actually remove a shim so that if you get some inking on the background, you don't have as much pressure and it would be less likely to transfer. But I want a really deep pressed image on these plates, so I am going to actually switch over to using ink cubes or smaller ink pads to ink up these plates. Now, that's going to do a couple of things. Number one, they're not going to be so strong and sticky that they're going to pull my plates off, but it's also going to keep me from over inking onto the platform of the Betterpress system there. So I'm not going to have ink all over the background, and I'm not going to have to worry about that transferring to my cardstock as I run it through my die cut machine. So again, I just switched over to the ink cubes, and that seemed to fix all of my problems. If only every problem in the world was this easy to fix. Just switch to ink cubes, you know? I'd have it all figured out. So I inked up the M in watermelon ink from Concord and 9th, and I'm inking up the R in ballet slipper. Now, I have to tell you that when using the Betterpress system, I have found that most dye inks I have in my stash work just fine, but there are inks available from Spellbinders as well that are designed to coordinate with the Betterpress system. So once I have those inked up, if anything kind of crept outside of the line of the registration plate, I just used my tweezers to kind of bump it back inside the outline, and then I placed the platen over the top of the chase on those magnetic feet, ran that through my die cut system, and you can see I have some perfectly pressed letters. Now I'm going to clean these letters. I've just used a baby wipe to clean off that ink, and I'm using a strong magnet to pull them off of this platform here. And I'm going to place my next two letters. Now you could do this one letter at a time, but I'm trying to save myself a little bit of time by doing a couple letters at a time. And because I'm using the small ink cubes, it's easy enough to ink these up in separate colors. Now you could ink these all in one color, that would be fine, but I think the cool design of this Betterpress registration plate system is that you can get multicolored images, and I love a good Christmas color palette. This one just floats my boat. It makes me happy. It's got some pink, it's got some sea glass, and some juniper from Concord and 9th. And then I threw in a little Stardust as well, which I think is a fun twist to this palette. Now I am kind of paying attention if I did get some ink onto that registration guide that's taped to the chase. I'm just kind of wiping it off with a microfiber cloth, and I inked up that Y using juniper ink, and this E I am going to ink up using sea glass ink. Now there were a few times in this inking process that I kind of knocked things out of the outline of the registration guide that's behind there, but that is not a big deal because you can just grab a pair of tweezers or an embellishment tool and kind of nudge it back into place before you press. Now on this particular time here, I actually had a little fuzzy on my Betterpress plate here, and I knew that that would not make for a good pressed image. So I just kind of wiped it off with my finger and then inked again. And you can see I kind of bumped it out of place when I was wiping it off with my finger. I'm just going to take the edge of my tweezers and then just move it back into place before I replace the platen onto those magnetic feet of the chase and run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Now, because I know many of you may ask, is the Betterpress system compatible with other die cut machines? And you can actually find that answer over on the Spellbinders site. I know that it is not compatible with the two electronic machines that I have, or electric die cutting machines that I have, which are the Anna Griffin Empress and the Gemini Junior. But it is compatible with the Spellbinders Platinum 6 and a few other machines, and you can find all that information over on the Spellbinders site. Now I went ahead and cleaned up those plates again using a baby wipe. I removed them from my chase, and now I'm placing the last letter of my Color Mix Mary design on to that registration guide, and I'm going to ink this up using the Concord and 9th Stardust ink. I love this color. It's kind of one of those chameleon colors. It could be green, it could be yellow. It's a little bit of both. And depending on what you pair it with, it can really kind of change up the look of this color. But I think it really mixes well with the pinks and greens that I have going on in this color scheme. And I will be using this color palette quite a bit to create holiday cards this year because I am just in love with it. So once I have that inked up, I went ahead and put the platen back on the chase, run that through my die cutting machine. When you run this through the die cutting machine, those little magnetic feet actually kind of press down, they're compressed. So then the ink is pressed into the cardstock and you get that faux letterpress look, which is so beautiful. So now while I have my Betterpress system out, I'm going to grab the Mistletoe Greetings Betterpress plate set, and I'm going to press all of these greetings at once because this is going to give me a ton of greetings and I'll have them on hand to use throughout the holiday season. So you can see I'm not paying attention really to lining them up in a particular place, but I am using a half sheet of letterpress cardstock. This is the porcelain color, and taping that to the platen of my Betterpress system. Now for these sentiments, because I'm not worried about nudging them around or bumping them around, I'm using a full-size ink pad. This is the Concord and 9th Rainforest ink. It's a really beautiful rich green. I'm going to ink up all of these sentiments at once and then run them through my die cut machine with that platen on top to press these sentiments onto my Betterpress cardstock. Now in this particular case, I'm not really super worried about the ink that's on the background because I'm going to be die cutting these out. And you'll see because that acetate registration guide was not on my platform, that ink in the background actually did not transfer to my cardstock. So that little acetate sheet that is on the platform can make a difference in what transfers and what does not. So just be careful and mindful of that. Now, I actually pressed and die cut these sentiments in both watermelon and rainforest colors. I'm going to have a ton of sentiments on hand for all of my holiday creating. And now that I have them pressed, I am using the coordinating dies and lining those up. I'm going to hold those in place with a little bit of the best ever craft tape so that they don't shift around while I run this through my die cut machine. And then I'll run that through and I'll have several of these sentiment strips ready to go for the holiday season. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned before, these Betterpress plates can be used with hot foil as well. So there are a lot of ways that you can use them. You could also ink up the sentiments in multicolors by just tapping on different colors of ink and kind of creating an ombre look. But I think it's fun to be able to use these for both foiling and Betterpress so that you really can get a variety of looks out of these. Now I finished die cutting all of those and set them aside, and now I'm going to grab the holly leaves and holly berries dies. This is from the candy canes and holly die set from Spellbinders. This is brand new as well. I ran those through my die cut machine. I die cut them from some rainforest cardstock and some watermelon cardstock, and I'm just going to kind of set them aside. They're just kind of a little embellishment for my card project, but the main star of the show is that multicolored text background featuring that Color Mix Mary Betterpress. Now this die set creates a berry background and then 3 individual berries, so I'm just using some liquid glue and my embellishment tool to place those onto the background. This gives it a little dimension, but you could also cover these using some glossy accents or cut them from some glitter cardstock, and that would be a fun accent for this card as well. So once I get those positioned, then I'm going to glue my holly leaves together just using a little dot of liquid adhesive at the base of one. I'm just going to kind of cross them over each other, and then I can apply some liquid glue to the base of this and add my berries. So I like to, when I'm using several different die cuts, I like to adhere together what I can so that I'm working with less pieces overall. Once I get them adhered together, then I can move this all in one big piece. Now I went ahead and grabbed the sentiment strip that says Merry Everything, and I'm adding some foam adhesive to the back of that. And when I placed it onto my card project, I felt like it was blending into the background just a little bit too much, and it needed some differentiation between the sentiment strip and the background. So I'm going to go ahead and use the die from that Mistletoe Greetings Betterpress plate set, and I'm going to die cut some colored cardstock. So I have some watermelon cardstock and some sea glass cardstock. I've die cut some banners from that. They make for great little backgrounds as well to die cut images. And I'm going to stack a couple of these on top of each other. I'm just using a little strip of liquid glue along the bottom of that watermelon, and I'm going to place it right over the sea glass strip here and offset it just a bit. And that's going to give me a little bit of color peeking out from behind this pressed sentiment and really just help it kind of come off the page, come alive a little bit more. Now, in order to position this over the top of those other two banners, I have that foam adhesive there, but I want to be able to wiggle it around. So I removed the backer from the foam adhesive and added some liquid glue to the top of that foam adhesive. That way I could kind of slip it into place. It gives me a little wiggle room when I'm adding this to the other two banners. And once again, I kind of did an offset on that so that you get all three of the colors kind of coming through. Now, once I have that all kind of adhered together, I can work with it in one piece. I'm going to adhere it onto this background that I created using that foam adhesive and liquid glue trick again. And I'm going to position that right over the base of the Y towards the bottom where the holly kind of looks like it's coming out from the Y. I thought that was a great positioning there. Keep in mind, this Color Mix Merry Betterpress plate set also has some sentiments that fit in that lower left-hand corner. Now I trimmed this panel down by about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm adding it onto a watermelon card base using a layer of foam adhesive to give it a little bit of dimension. And I finished the berries off using some enamel dots that match that cardstock that I used. And that finishes off my card for today. I absolutely love the modern typography design of this Color Mix Merry plate. Keep in mind, this is available today from Spellbinders, so if you want to grab it, now is a good time to do it. It's a perfect time, you know, with this 110-degree heat we're having here in California to create Christmas cards. It's just like bring on the cold, right? Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there, or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I will have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to say thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the paper crafting and card making video tutorials I share here. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.